Hey Deep Chatters, I'm Leah Morris here with my co-host Jennifer Butler, and this is Deep Chats Podcast, where we have raw discussions about real life. Each week you can expect unfiltered, no BS conversations from the heart about topics that actually might matter to you. We're just a couple of relationship coaches who want to cut through the small talk and dive deeper. So thanks for joining us on this journey, and be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode.
Hey Deep Chatters, how's everybody doing out there today? We are here today with Jennifer Hurvitz. I am so excited because you were actually supposed to be our first guest. And yes, and then the whole COVID thing happened and here we are. So
I'm here. I'm so happy.
I'm so happy to have you here. So those of you who don't know Jennifer, and that would be shocking if you don't, because you are everywhere, you're a certified divorce specialist. You are a podcast host of Doing Divorce Right. You're a writer, a mom, and just an amazing human. I'm going to just kind of turn it over to you to say hi, but what we're going to be chatting about today is Jennifer's book, Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda. And, it's this very, very interesting and very thought-provoking book about what Jennifer would have done, could have done, and should have done differently in her divorce. And there's a lot of questions that come up around that. So I am really excited to kind of dive into that with you personally, and then how you kind of coach women as a whole from that perspective. So thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here. Hi, girls. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. This COVID thing has been like a nightmare. I can't even I know everyone feels the same way, but thank God that they have coaches like you guys, because I'm like, oh my God. I'm just glad to be here today. So people always ask me based on, I have two books. The first one is One Happy Divorce, Hold the Bullshit. And the second one is Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda, a divorce coach's guide to staying married. So people always say, oh my God, based on your second book, like a divorce coach, saving marriages, what does that mean? Why do you have regret? Would you feel like you shouldn't have gotten divorced? And the answer is no. Although I am happily divorced, I don't regret getting divorced. I just regret kind of the way I did it, kind of the way I went through it. And I feel like had I known then what I know now 5 years later, perhaps I would have maybe not jumped so quickly. Maybe I would have put some more work in. Maybe I would have taken the time to be a little more thoughtful in the process. I'm lucky. I feel like I'm not like most divorces. My husband, I call him my husband and I are really good friends, and we have a super amicable divorce, which I think is very rare. We have a happy divorce, but I'm not happily divorced, if that makes sense. I think, and let me just say this caveat really quickly, I do feel, obviously, if you need to get divorced and it's inevitable and you are in a physically or emotionally abusive relationship, get out, right? My first chapter of my book is get out, run, go, call, you need to leave. But if there's that spark or little inkling that you could put the work in and stay married, I really feel like you should. And that's where Woulda, Coulda, Shoulda, a divorce coach's guide to staying married comes from. I really feel like I woulda, coulda, shoulda stayed married. Had I known what divorce was going to look like, I might have stayed married. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And this is kind of why I'm really excited to talk to you about this, because as you said, right, and my experience and Leah's experience, we've been very open about our marriages. We were in that other situation where we needed to go, right?
Go.
Right. So talking to you from this perspective, to me, is just so fascinating, so interesting, and I think so valuable, because who better than to give that feedback and that information and that wisdom than somebody who has completely gone through the process and is using that tool of self-reflection to gain wisdom and insight and share it with everybody. So,
well, I hope so, because I remember going through my divorce and everyone I was talking to was married. Yeah. And everyone was like, I had no one to talk to who actually had gone through it to say, whoa, Jen, the grass is not greener Like, girl, if you think you're going to get like swinging from the rafters and it's going to be like sex everywhere and you're going to be happy and, you're going to love having Hanukkah and Christmas by yourself and it's sitting in your, like, I did not have, everyone is like, no, you'll be fine. And not that you won't, because you will, trust me, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I didn't really know at all what I was getting into. Like, here's the thing, of course, if you need to get divorced, right? You're going to be okay. Like, I'm okay. I have a great relationship. 5 years later, I have a boyfriend for 3 years. We're good, but it's never going to be the same. We all know this, as your marriage, right? Like, if you think it is, you're kidding yourself. It's never going to be that, right? So I just wish that someone would have said, Jen, whoa, chill out, like, take a deep breath, because you can fix what you have if you work at it, right? Like, you really can. No one said that to me. Everyone was like, if you need to get divorced, go do it. Blah, blah. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I just feel like even my therapist, that my husband and I were in therapy, we went to couples therapy, she was married. So like, she didn't know what to tell me about the divorce. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just wish I can give you some examples, but like, I didn't even have a clue what it was going to be like.
So like, when you're saying like, it's not like my marriage.
Right.
What do you mean by that? Like,
for example, I didn't like, of course, like, the typical things, like, you're going to lose your friendships, or your friendships are going to change. I didn't think my kids' friendships were going to change like they did. I had no clue. No one said your kids are going to lose their friends. I mean, I had no idea, right? I knew my financial situation was going to change. Of course, you're going from, but I didn't realize the drastic change that was, I guess, was I naive? Did I feel stupid? Was I just no one told? I'm like, it was just, I went from, and here's the thing too, I was lonely in my marriage. I was in a sexless, loveless, lonely marriage, but it's still like divorced. I'm lonely. Like, I'm still, but it's a different lonely. You're alone. Like, I was alone. Like, so I guess it's one of those things, like, I didn't hate my husband. He wasn't mean. He wasn't narcissistic. He wasn't abusive. He wasn't, I was just like, the garage door didn't open at the end of the day. My heart didn't flutter. Okay. Like, so that's a reason. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
so, well, let me ask you that.
Like, I was one of those women. I don't mean to be like, I'm not judging. I'm just trying to be really honest. And say, if you're one of those women who thinks that marriage isn't like, how can I say this? Intimacy has 7, right? You go through 7 stages of intimacy, and love changes, right? So I just thought, like, you get married and you're supposed to, like, like, I was just, how to explain it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just thought that I was going to be in love my whole marriage. No, it changes. You go through stages. You're best friends. You go through, admiration, and then respect, and then and I just thought I was supposed to have, like, rip-roaring sex the whole night. No, you learn to, like, right? I just thought, like, my expectations were that like, I guess I left for the wrong reasons. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because you're saying so much in that, right? And I think, Leah, we've talked about this before too, about, really feeling into what love actually feels like for you as an individual, right? And I think sometimes, Leah, this is what you spoke to. Sometimes we get caught up in that feeling of excitement and thinking like it's going to be exciting forever. But and you said, do you really want to feel excited every single moment of your life, like forever and ever? Like, probably not, right?
But I mean, well, even if you do, like, you understand you can't, you're not going to feel that honeymoon phase. It lasts 18 months. Yeah. So if you think that you're going to get that for 18 years, what did I think? Like, what was I thinking, right? It's just, and I want to say to, like, every newly married couple, like, should come see me so I can slap them and say, just so you know, like, around 7 years, you're going to feel this way, but work through it. Like, push through it, because you will be okay. Like no one said that to me. No one said, hey, Jen, at 7 years, you're going to get this like weird feeling like you maybe shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? You're going to put your kids first and you're going to and you're going to get annoyed and things are going to bother you and you're going to nag him and he's going to be like that's normal. That's normal behavior with your spouse, right? You have that. No one said work through that to me. I just thought, throw your hands up and go. Like, that's what you should, you see what I'm saying? It wasn't like we didn't have a tumult. We didn't fight every day. Like when we fought, it was normal, like bickering and you see what I'm saying? But I put my kids first and I put him second. And I thought that was okay. It's not okay. It's not okay to put your kids first and your husband second. That's not okay. If you want to put your kids first and your husband second, you'll be divorced like me. Like that's what I write in my book, but that's the truth. Like no one said to me, put him first. Appreciate your husband. Like, I don't mean to sound sexist or, I'm sorry, go ahead, Leah. I keep talking.
Well, appreciate each other. Yeah.
Appreciate each other. Right. Do you see what I'm saying? But like, I didn't, I was an emasculating bitch. Was.
Yeah. So this is an interesting topic because the whole idea of like appreciating, like prioritizing children, husband is something that I've talked to quite a few of my friends about who are like newly getting married, and they all have different ideas of what that looks like.
Yeah,
and
I do too.
I think that I have my own perspective on it. And so I want to like kind of dive in a little bit here if that's okay.
Please. It's just my opinion, by the way. Actually it's not. I've done research so much, but yeah.
I'm just going to, I totally believe like partnership first. I think that
so
like with my mom and my stepdad, when they got married, they actually sat us kids down and they were like, we're a united front. There's going to be some hard times coming up, like we're a new family. We're all like blending now, but, Dad and I are going to have these conversations without you, and we're going to decide together about these things. And so even if I wanted to like create a wedge between them, which I definitely tried, like as a child of divorce going into like this new stepfather figure, they made it very clear, like we're united in this. And I now looking back, I'm like, that's how you keep it together.
Can I ask you a question? Do you mind if I ask you? Are they still married? Are you still?
They are. They're happily married.
Do you know how hard it is? Do you know the statistics on blended families? Like kudos to them because that's why they're still together. I don't believe in blending families for that reason alone. It is so difficult to blend families. It is almost like all the divorce coaches are going, she's crazy. I mean, do you know, I get so much pushback. Blending families, the stats on a second marriage with blended families are like 74% divorce, the rate, because it's so hard. But what you just said, Leah, is so important. Like the front that you have to do it. But most moms, we're innate, like we put our kids first. And I remember when, this is the truth, when Jonah came out of my vagina, I looked at Mark across him and I said, you're second, babe, he's first. Like I can remember my entire body went, he's done.
Wow.
Mark's done. Jonah's first. And I remember that feeling. I had the children, now I can cry, like knowing that Mark was no longer a priority to me. And even before when we were dating, I can remember looking at him and saying, I just really want your sperm. And I was kidding, but I don't really think I was. Like, I just think in my being, I just love my kids so much more than I loved him. I just didn't know how to, and I remember when we got separated, I remember calling him. I was in Malibu in a Camp Empowerment seminar, like about all this stuff. And I called him from the mountain and I tried to find a signal. And I said, Mark, I am so sorry. I cry every time I tell this, but I'm like, I'm just so sorry because I was like awful. And he's like, Jen, we were both bad to each other. We were both. And I'm like, no, I wasn't right. Like I just, and he's like, Jen, we're good. We're good. We're going to co-parent. We got this. We're going to find a way to do this. And I said, I'm just so sorry. Like I never gave him the wife he deserved. But my kids, I was the best mom, I still am. And he was the best dad, but we were really shitty spouses.
Right.
And it's not okay. It's not okay. I always cry because I feel so bad still. Like the regret I have is for the way we treated each other. Does that make sense? So like, but I needed to get divorced.
Well,
realize
it's because you were doing the best you could with what you knew then. Right. But you know now differently.
Right.
And so, I guess the distinction though, that I'm hearing when you speak is not that, there's a very like a clear point, which is not stay because, it's terrible on the other side, or stay, just settle.
No.
What I hear you saying is like, had you both just turned to each other and said, we are not, being the best partners to one another. And if we tried to do that first,
exactly,
and make this what it has the possibility to be.
Right. So that's why I wrote the book. Like, I'm like, look, the first section of the book is what I wish I knew. Right. And the second part of the book is what it will look like if you don't listen. Does that make sense? Like, it's kind of like, it's like a revelation, and it's not to scare anybody. Right. But it's kind of like just an honest depiction of what I think every married person really, and I have had so many people call me or like message me and saying, thank you so much for writing this, because I'm staying married. I'm going to work on this. And even if I give it a year, I'm just going to give it a year and we're going to see what happens. And if they get divorced, at least they tried. Or, or like, thank you so much, because now I'm being kinder to my husband, or I'm being nicer to my wife, or we actually have a date. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have like tips and tricks and what to do. And I just feel like a positive kind of, and divorce is there are people who it's inevitable. Like, if you get divorced, you get divorced. Look, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying do not get divorced. That's crazy. People have to you'll get divorced. There's nothing, please. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I wouldn't be where I am, So.
Yeah. So let's dive into like that first part. So like the what I wish I knew, and so I love this. So one of the things I heard, wishing you knew that to put your husband first and put each other first.
Oh my gosh.
Right. What else? Like, so what are some of these other ones?
Oh my gosh, where do I even start? I mean, I just, it's like people always say to me, well, what would you do differently? And I just feel like, and it's both of you, right? People always say you're so pro male. I'm only pro male because I feel like I was just like, I'm pro unit. I'm pro like, I think a good date night, everyone says a date night, what do you mean? But like, a date night is only a date night if you make it legit, right? Like, if you say, we used to go on date nights and we used to talk about the kids. Well, I mean, like, okay.
That's hot.
Oh, it's real hot, right? I mean, I used to be like, and then I used to get home and like fake like diarrhea. I'd be like, I have the worst diarrhea. I can't, that's really hot. So, I mean, I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, you're not allowed to talk about, because I have couples, you're not allowed to talk about the kids. You're not allowed to talk about finances, because that's really sexy. And you're not allowed to talk about work. Okay. So, and that's tough. You know how tough that is when you go out with a guy, like with your husband, and you can't talk about those three things that's all your life revolves around. Like, what else is there? Netflix,
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's the whole sex thing. I mean, we could talk all day, but that's another topic. But I mean, like, you have to have an intimacy, not only intimacy, and sex is so, girls, it's so important. I mean, you have to have intimacy, and you have to have sex. And if you don't, I mean,
well, it really kind of is the thing, right? That distinguishes the relationship between your friends and your marriage or your significant other, right?
Because once you get there, once you're friends, you're friends.
Yeah.
And no one wants, and I have my clients that come to me that are still married that say to me, we are friends. I need to get divorced. We are friends. I can't be in a sexless, loveless marriage. And I'm like, no, you cannot. You cannot be in a sexless, no, you can't. And then they say, but I don't want to get divorced just because we're not having sex. And I'm like, so go have sex. And they say, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you have two choices. You either have sex with your husband, or you don't. But you can't stay married and not, I mean, you can stay married and not have sex, but is that what you want? And everyone looks at me, they're like, no. Because I remember my therapist, my husband and I, and he said, this is in the book, and he said, we're going to start by holding hands. And I looked at him and I looked at Mark and I said, what? I said, oh, no. I said, you're not getting paid. Can I swear? Or
Yeah.
No? You're not getting paid till he fucks me. You don't fuck me. He's not getting paid. I'm out. Right? I was like, no, I'm not. No. I'm like, I'm dying here. Like my vagina is drying. I was, no, you need to have sex, right?
Yeah.
So,
I was just reading a book, and Leah, you might have actually recommended this book, but there is a lot of work around that, right? Like a lot of therapists will take the approach of like, we need to build up to you having sex versus just have sex.
Yes.
And then most of that other stuff kind of seems to like work itself out, but you have to be having sex first.
Oh my God, yes. Because here's the thing, like never like kiss a guy and like you start kissing and you're like, just starts and like you just kiss and like you're like, okay, I want to keep going, because kissing is like so intimate. Like you've got like, I have a client who like would never kiss. They didn't kiss. They just had sex. And she was like, it's like, we never kissed. And I'm like that's the best part. Like that's the most, it's so, I don't know. Like, so I tell I have this other thing that I talk about in the book, like scheduling sex.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I love it. I tell my clients to schedule sex and they're like, you're crazy. I'm like, no, it goes both ways. Like some therapists will tell you that it's too much pressure to have sex once a week. And then other therapists will tell you it's great. And I love it. I have a girlfriend who taught me this, and she has sex once a week. And the best part about it is that you don't have to do it the rest of the week. Have to. You don't, it's all off the table. It's off the table. So there's no stress, right? You don't worry about it. You don't have to shave. You don't have to think about it, whatever. But then on that one night that it's on. So like he can send you sexy texts. You can buy a cute thong, leave it in his briefcase. Like it's just like stuff like that, right? Leave a note on the thing like, it's tonight, honey. You just know it's coming. It's the anticipation, because that's sexy. Anticipation is hot, right? So you know that every Friday night you're getting it. So it's kind of like, it's that thrill of the chase kind of thing, I mean, there's stuff like that. You have to find ways to like, to make it happen. I think it's so hard for me because I get these, I say little, you guys are young. I get these young, like, cute girls that I talk to and they're like 30 and they've been married for 3 years. And they're like, oh, he does nothing around the house. And I'm like, oh. He leaves his socks on the floor. I'm like, that sock is going to ruin your marriage. It's going to be the end of it. Do you care that much about that sock? Don't put that much weight in that sock. Like, if it's that big of a deal, pick the damn sock up and put, I'm saying, like, I'm making light of this, but that sock is important because that sock it means more than, right? That sock is disrespectful to her because it's a lack of respect, but really he's not thinking about that sock. Does that make sense?
Yeah. What do you think, like, is part of that, like, what's like feeding into that culture of, well, it's not like sparks and the house isn't like completely clean all the time. Like, I'm just going to get a divorce. Like what's feeding into that? And I could say like social media probably in this idea that like there is perfect and we have to strive for that. But is that what you think?
I think it's The Bachelor. I think it's because I know I watch The Bachelor. I'm like, well, why doesn't Jim do that? Why didn't I get that rose today? Or why didn't he make that gorgeous? Nothing is like, I mean, everything is perfect, and the dates and come on.
The Jerry Maguire, you complete me.
You complete me. You complete your, and Jim will say to me, that is fake. The producers made them do that. Like, and I think we just think it's supposed to be like this white picket fence and blah, blah, bullshit. I mean, that social media, no one posts their horrible day. No one posts their bad pictures of the fight they have with their boyfriend. It all looks perfect. And that's what we have to, in the magazines with the airbrushing and the Photoshop and Like that's what these girls and all of us and these guys have to, I mean, it's just hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. And I do want to speak to the possibility though, right? Because when you do have two people who truly are committed to creating.
You're so positive, Jen. You're so positive. I'm like, they all suck. You're like,
I will not give up on the fairy tale.
Oh, please do not. Do not. I mean, you can. You're right. You're right. You're right.
Because when there's two people who are like, you know, and look, to me, it all comes down to like this commitment to personal development, right? And personal growth, and like really being committed to being your best self. So when you have two people coming together who are like committed to happiness, committed to growing, committed to like showing up and really like working through the hard, because you're right. Anything that's worth it is not easy. Anything that's worth it is not going to be like a walk in the park, right? But when you have two people who show up and are almost fueled by the challenge and realize that those are just opportunities to get closer, well, then there really is this chance for this like epic sort of really deeply connected, passionate, really amazing love, which of course there's going to be bad days and hard times.
Of course.
But there is that possibility for what the fairy tale should really look like, right?
Because, and I feel like the fairy tale, quote unquote, is I don't want to say lower your expectations, but the fairy tale doesn't have to be the fairy tale. It can be the fairy tale. Does that make sense? The realistic fairy tale. Mm-hmm. That life is difficult, that life comes with challenges, but you can meet them together.
Yeah, why not be excited about the challenges?
Right. But like, I feel like people that would date you or Leah, right, would have to be your people, right?
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Right. So like I'm not going to put down but the guy I'm dating would never, like, he doesn't want to do the work like that he's not the love language guy that's going to show it, like and I work all day at like making myself better or wanting, and he's like, we got this. And I'm like, oh, like, no, we don't. Like, we've got to. So you've got to find that person that's going to do the work with you. Yeah. That doesn't say, I'm not going to therapy or we got this. It's easy, because it's not. And when a challenge, comes up, he's got to be able to, or she's got to be able to want to do the work. Because it takes two, right?
For sure. Yeah.
It's hard.
That's so hot. Like if a guy was like, we're having some struggles.
Yes.
I think I'm going to find let's like search for a therapist together. I'd be like,
oh my God. Oh my God. I know, right? I have a girlfriend who watches her husband do the dishes and she gets like turned on. I'm like, now that is like,
let's have sex now. If guys only like, listen, guys.
They don't, what is the problem, right?
Like if you just like, it's like do the dishes, like vacuum the floor. Like that's all you need to do.
It's so funny. Whenever I do my talks around I have like the guys on one side and the girls on the other. And I'm like, okay, guys, who loves when their wives nag them? And the guys are like, right. And the girls are like, girls, whose men always listen all the time? And the girls are like, it's like, it's just so specific, because guys hate the tone of women's voices, that they shriek and and women hate that their men never listen. It's the same thing in every house. It's just, if we could just, it's so hard in the moment to remember like what not to do when you get, like, that's why, Jen, you're so important, because I feel like I'm super impulsive. You teach people to like simmer, like to be able to find their, I don't know if people could see me, but like to chill out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Immediately I go, my Jewish tone gets like all, like that hot mom, temper. So, and, men they can't handle it. They tune you out. They just tune you out immediately. So.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because we really do, I think it's a level of being too comfortable as well. Like, because if you think about like the way we treat our partner, yep. Like, and even though first of all, the way you treat yourself, right? Like when you think about things, like, would you ever treat like your best friend or your child the way you treat yourself? Hell no, right? And would you ever treat your best friend the way you treat your partner? Like, so there's this level of comfort where it's like, yes, of course, that's part of the beauty of intimacy, is being so comfortable and still staying in this place where this is still a human being who deserves your respect and honor and adoration. because they're like that sacred piece of it, right? If we could keep that devotion and that sacred element, we would.
I feel like you just read my book. I feel like you're like speaking my language. Because,
I mean, I have read your book. It's been a while.
Well, I know, seriously. I was like, wait a minute, because Mark used to say to me, my husband used to say to me, everyone else gets nice, Jen.
Yeah, that's right.
And I get the nasty, mean, why do you save all your nice for everyone else? And I said to him, but Mark, because you will still love me. Like you still will, because you understand. It's just, you get it. And he's like, but I don't want it. He's like, the people that care about you the most should get the good Jen. Like, yell at the mailman. He's like, you're never going to see him again. What if the manicurist gets nice Jen? And I get this mean, nasty. I'm like, oh my God, he's so right. And even Jonah, my son, last week, he said to me, I said, baby, I'm your punching bag. He's 18. He's going through like all this college application stuff. And he's so nasty. And I'm like, baby, I'm like your punching bag. He's like, Mom, he's like, who else am I going to, he's like, you know, it's unconditional, Mom. I know you're going to love me tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're exactly right. That's what you're saying. It's like, you forget that they deserve I know, so hard. Relationships are so hard. All of them. So.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I should just, you know, this COVID thing's been great. I've been alone in my house watching Netflix. It's perfect.
See, you're a silver lining girl too.
There we go. I'm just so happy.
Man, I feel like with romantic relationships, especially though, there's also that element of like, I don't know, I keep thinking of what you were saying, like the loss of interest, almost.
Totally.
And this idea of, it feels very like disconnected.
Yeah.
And that's hard to decipher when you're like in a marriage, like, am I not connected anymore to this partnership, or is this just a season? And I think maybe I'm saying this partially too from like personal experience, that feeling of like, I felt alone in my marriage.
I did too.
Like, I'll say that all the time. Like, the loneliest I've ever felt was in my marriage.
Me too.
Yeah.
And so that was like, it's really hard to like look at that and say,
I need to stay. I should work on it. Yeah. Do you feel like it was a passage of time? Like, do you think it would have changed, or you feel like, no, that was like it?
I think that my thing was, I never was, leading up to my marriage, I was never really in touch with my own emotions and needs.
Okay.
And so when I began to like sort of wake up within myself and have these needs and emotions, I realized that I had attracted a partner who was not equipped or even willing to give me those things or hear me. And so I had been lonely the whole time. I just realized it, and it was too late.
Oh, do you mind me asking how long were you married?
I was only married a year and a half.
Oh, so that's...
We were together about 6, all together, but it was just a big like aha moment. Like,
perfect.
Wait,
that's good though.
This person is just not
good. That you got out.
Not here with me.
But that's perfect that you didn't have to, like, it was just, you knew when you were done. Thank God.
Yeah.
Like, that's like good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't.
Yeah.
I think that's actually better. Like, than spending so much time and then even like knowing that it wasn't right, but staying. Right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I got, I think, the opposite side of you, which was the first year is the hardest. You should stick it out. You got this. Didn't you see any of these red flags before? Like, what were you, like, are you just complaining because now you're married and there's nothing to look forward to? No, and I had to like really think about all of that. Like, can I trust my own, instincts on this? And I think that was like my biggest lesson was like, I haven't been trusting myself this entire life.
Oh, that's good. Well, you seem like a gut, you seem like an instinct girl. Like I just having met you, you seem like your gut knows, you go, that's it. Like, what's your sign?
I'm Aquarius.
Okay. Just wondering. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I have a
Taurus. Can you say you're a Taurus at all?
I have a Taurus, what is it called?
Moon.
So, yeah, so I'm very like grounded,
Yeah.
instinctual. Yeah.
I just love that stuff. You guys should have someone on with that. I love that. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Like you guys should have. I have one. So I have someone for you who's fantastic. She's like a whole reader. Oh, wait, Jen, aren't you a Libra?
No, Scorpio.
Why did I think you? Oh, but your birthday soon, November.
November. Yeah.
Yeah.
November 20th.
I knew that we were somewhere close because I'm this month. So.
Yeah, Scorpio.
That's right. Oh my gosh, that's right. Okay, well, this is so fun. I could stay here all day.
So yeah, we totally got sidetracked.
Oh my gosh, that's what happens when you have me.
Oh yeah,
that's what I was going to say. With what Leah said, you know, we have a very similar story, Leah and I, and journey, but hers, you know, I was one of those people who took longer, right? So I stayed in that lonely, unhappy, disconnected phase of my life for so many years, like 10 years, before I finally was like, whoa. Right. And when I woke up, same thing, realized, wow, I have invested so much time into a human being who cannot meet me where I need to be met. And so yeah, I mean, I think like just circling all the way back around, it's like, you know, the first thing is really like, it always comes back to you.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, are you even, you know, aware of yourself and meeting your own needs and aware of your needs and aware of your wants and aware of your feelings and all of that stuff really before you can make any decision.
Right. But you guys are both so young.
I mean, I'm not that young.
Yes,
she's young.
No, you're both babies.
No, she's a baby.
How old are you, Leah?
34.
Oh, you're both you're both under 40.
No.
Yes, you are, Jen. How old are you?
I am not. I'm 43.
Okay, that's so young. But you guys have your whole, like, I just feel like you both, like, oh my gosh, you like have your whole, I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? You have a lot of life. Like, you guys got you know, you got divorced at like a good time, like where, you know, I have friends that are like, I hate whatever, but like they're in their 50s getting a gray divorce, you know, like, which is, I'm having on, that's another one you guys should do. I have a great couple, not couple, but two authors coming on that wrote a book about gray divorce, and to listen to that and to hear like people who have spent 25 years, 30 years in a marriage and are getting divorced after they're waiting for their kids. They wanted to stay because they don't want their kids to go. I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's a whole other song and dance. You know, they've given 25 years to their, you know, they stayed so their kids didn't have to go. I'm like, and they're in their 50s.
A lot of this is generational too, right? Which is a whole other topic, right? Because I think millennials are going to really like redefine. Well, you're a millennial, Leah, but I think.
Yeah, I'm like at the very end of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's like a starter marriage. So like, that's what I talk about a lot too, is like the kids, the younger marriages that are getting divorced before 25. So they're called starter marriages. So, you know, that's like,
but the millennials really aren't getting married, right?
No, they're not. Thank God. They're doing it. It's called slow love.
Yeah.
Helen Fisher, we talk about that. But the slow love where they're like taking, and their divorce rate is actually going down in the millennials.
Yeah.
It's much lower because they're waiting to get married.
Yeah.
They're smart.
Yeah. They're smart.
They're smart. They're waiting. I tell my kids, don't even think about it till you're 40. And they're like, Mom, I'm like 40. I'm talking about.
Love it.
That's interesting. Slow love.
It's called
slow
love.
I guess I did have a starter marriage. No, it wasn't. I got divorced at, I was 30 when I got divorced.
Okay. So almost close.
So yeah, I still consider it like, I mean, I feel so much now that I'm in the dating scene. I actually feel very wise going into it and saying, what do you think about this? I've been divorced. Just to watch how they like take that in. And I've gotten a lot of, I was afraid like getting divorced that young was like, oh, this person doesn't know how to like stay committed. But what I'm getting in like instead is a lot of people saying, oh, that just shows that you aren't afraid of commitment. And I'm like, that's exactly right. Actually,
you should come on my show. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about you and how you like dating. I love it. That's my favorite.
I would love to. Yeah.
My favorite topic is dating after divorce. That's my dream.
Well, even as a woman on the other side, I mean, I prefer to date a man who's divorced at my age, right? So if I'm dating somebody a man in their 40s, I prefer to hear I'm divorced than I've never, ever been married. Right. Because to me, I'm like, and I know that that's aging up now with the younger generation, but in my generation, it's like, well, then, you know, how do you feel about commitment? Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what's happening with that?
Totally. I know it's the whole, it's a lot, girls. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's me,
and I
who
always talk about, oh, go ahead.
No. I was going to say I'm older. I'm 48. So like for me, if I to date a guy that's not been divorced, I won't. He has to have been divorced because I'm like red flag. Or no. Single.
Yeah, totally.
Because like, what's he been doing for?
A Peter Pan or something like that.
Yeah, something like if you're 50 and you've never been married or whatever, like there's clearly, you know.
But although I'm like you, I tell my son the same thing. Like, wait till you're 40.
That's true. That's right. Wait till you're 40. Don't look at another girl.
Do everything you want to do before so that you can be a present parent and a present partner and a present all that.
Yep.
But again, it's generational, I think.
Totally. I agree. Absolutely. Oh, what were you going to say, Leah?
Oh, I was going to say, this whole like, I forgot what I was going to say. I think it was about like slow love. I wrote down Slow Love by Helen Fisher. I've never read that book, but it's intriguing.
Oh, it's not.
Like,
it's a TED Talk. And then she did, so I actually quoted her, my TED Talk. She's a biological anthropologist and she does a whole, she wrote a book called, it's not called Slow Love, it's something else. She wrote a couple articles too, but she talks about, she's incredible. She's amazing. Everything about slow love and millennials and look her up.
Okay.
She's great.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. She's amazing.
I'll be sure to put that into the show notes. But I guess I wanted to circle back around to like our initial topic of the idea of staying married. Obviously, like we've kind of veered into like, there's instances where you shouldn't, there's instances where you should, trust your gut. There's instances where you should get out and there's instances where you should try. Sure. And this idea of, I used to say, I wish I had put as much thought into my marriage as I had into my divorce. Like before deciding to say yes to marriage, I felt like I didn't really think about it in depth. With the divorce, I was in my head for that whole entire marriage of like, what have I done? Like, what is, is this my life? And it took me a while to actually decide to get divorced.
Me too.
But I wish it would have taken me that long to think about saying yes. And so, you know what I mean? And so I think like the idea of staying married too, is not a foreign concept to me, but I can see how it is to a lot of women who maybe have been married longer.
Yes, that's what it is.
And just have lost that spark.
Yep.
I don't know where I'm going with this,
but I do. I get what you're going. Yeah. Because it's one of those things like almost where's that 7-year itch? Like they normally say around 7 years of marriage, women have that like, almost like I miss that rush of like the newness, right? Like they're kind of over it or they have X amount of kids because most women are like, not most, I shouldn't say that, but typically women get married, they have 2 kids, they have the blah, it's like that whole like, well, my generation, that's what we were supposed to do. We're supposed to get our MRS degree and we get married and then we have this and then we have it's like, that was my dilemma was we were supposed to do what we were supposed to do. And that's why, Jen, I say to my kids, this is what you're not, just go have fun and do your thing. Right. Yeah. And so even when I was sitting next to a girl on the airplane somewhere and she was, I think 24, she was like, maybe 25. And she's like, I don't understand. I was reading a book or something and we were talking about dating. I told her what I did. And she said, oh my God, I can't find a guy and I need to get married. And I feel like I have to have kids. And I said, whoa, no, honey. I'm like, slow down. You don't have to do anything. I was like, you have so much time. Enjoy. You should be dating millions of guys. And I was like, like, I just felt like supposed to was so hard. It's such a hard, because I remember listening to like my mom, I was the last one to get married out of all my friends. I had bridesmaids dresses in every color with dyeable shoes to match, like I was 30 and my like it's just, it's hard. So
What would you say then is because you did wait a while to get married, but
I think I was 29, turned 29.
Okay. Yeah. So you're like my age
Yeah.
then, when that happened, with the idea of like, okay, coming into that 7-year itch or whatever, or that time where you're feeling like the disconnection or the spark being lost, talking to therapists, talking to people who are like, just leave, just get out. Like it's over, you know, how would you recommend, aside from all these like tips and tools, but like if you're being told by an authority figure, like a therapist, like just, you know, get out, how would you recommend devil's advocating that? Because that's a hard thing not to listen to.
Yeah. You know what? I think people always, people say like, you'll know when you know. It's so not true. Like, it's so not true. I did not know. Like, I think it took me about 3 years to finally, like, if I'm being completely honest, I remember Mark and I, my husband and I think we had sex and we looked at each other and we're like, was that like the worst thing ever? He was like, that was awful. And I was like, it was like having sex with my brother and my sister. And he's like, I'd rather have sex with your sister. And he was like, I was like, what? And he's like, Jen. And I said to him, I remember saying to him, should we just end this before we both hate each other? Like, should we just end this before it gets so bad that one of us does something awful? Like, meaning like we both cheat or we both, like, we almost knew that it was going to get bad. Like, I feel like if you know that it's just like, that's when we knew, like, we could have the conversation so openly without getting angry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it was like the nicest, kindest conversation about divorce that any two people could possibly have because we were so done. Does that make sense? Like, there's no animosity. There was no anger. It was like, we were just like, it was a business deal. And I looked at him and I said, we will do this, Mark, but we will only do this if we can do it right.
Yeah.
If we can be amicable, if we can be kind, and we can put the kids first. And I thought to myself, God, that's really weird because I put my kids first the whole marriage. Why would it be any different in my divorce? So that's what I tell people when I speak. I'm like, during your marriage, you have to put your kids second, and during your divorce, you have to put your kids first. People are like, bingo. Like, it just was such a revelation for me that it just made total sense, because in the end, isn't that right? Like, if you want to do divorce right, you put your kids first. If you want to do marriage right, you put them second, which is so funny to me, but like, just kind of made sense.
I love that.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
It makes total sense, right? And I get such pushback. People are like, every time I'm speaking and I'm like, you have to put your, number 4, you put your kids second. People are like, what do you mean? I can't believe you're saying that. How could you? And then by the end of my talk, they're like, oh my God, yes, that's what she means. I get it now. But I don't technically, of course you're going to put your kids first, like that, duh. But like,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Put your relationship. So, it's just one of
I
those
love that.
Yeah.
I love how much this conversation has jumped all over the place.
I know, right?
But it's nice, it's like, this is life. Like, this is a culmination of like all of our experiences with divorce and like the regrets. I think even last night I was talking about how, you don't realize that all like the shame and the guilt that comes along with divorce too. And
so much
having to like live, like sit in that and see, what that really feels like. It's not victorious, until you get through that process. But I don't think that there's anyone that I've ever spoken to that could skip that, that looking at the self of like, I failed in this thing that I committed to. But anyway, I think that everything that we've said here is just really good for all of our listeners to hear, like all these different sides.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And
I think your listeners need to know too that you will be okay. Like, everyone says to me, well, you're so anti-divorce. I'm no way. Like, everyone needs to know that you go through what you grow through, or is it you grow through what you go through, whichever one, but like, you will be okay.
Yeah.
Like, you will be like, I'm okay. You're okay. We're all, you're fine. You get through it. It's a process, and you find your way. Right.
Yeah.
but you're okay. Yeah. You get to be okay. So
that's so perfect. I was going to ask you like a parting word, but I think like that's perfect.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
Oh, that's easy. JenniferHurvitz.com. I think that's my website. Everything's there, all my social media stuff, but JenniferHurvitz.com. On Instagram, it's Doing Divorce Right. And on Facebook, it's Jennifer Hurvitz Biz. Should be the same, but it's not. I don't know. I don't know. Doing Divorce Right that's about it. But yeah. So thanks, girls. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you. I love your grounded approach. Like you're just very like here.
And
it feels really nice.
It's been a long year. This has been, thank you. This has been like one of the highlights of my week. So I appreciate you guys. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Love you, girls.
Thanks, Deep Chatters. Thanks everybody tuning in next week. Other than that, check out our show notes for all the links to find Jennifer, and please take care of yourselves.
To all you deep chatters out there, Leah and I want to thank you so much for listening. This is a podcast that's all about connection, so we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on Instagram at Deep Chats Podcast. And if you haven't already, please go to iTunes to rate and review us. Every review helps other deep chatters just like you be able to find this podcast.